What's going on, guys? Victor here, and today again I am with Tom Lewis back for another video. And in this video it's going to be a beginner's guide to snook fishing a bridge. So I'm going to let Tom take it away.
Okay, hey, we're going to talk about bridge fishing, and we're going to talk about bridge jumping. And what I mean by that is when you hit a bridge, fish it for a little bit, you may want to move down the river, catch the next bridge, whatever. And we do that a lot. Some nights we'll fish 10, 12 bridges from dark to daylight. Them all-nighters will get you though.
Hold on, interruption. Jacks are going ham.
That was a big one.
Yeah. Look at all those catfish.
Let's just say you're a beginner as far as jig fishing or snook fishing in general, and you want to learn how to possibly jig up some snook on the First Light jigs, and you don't know where to go. I suggest, number one, all bridges hold fish. Okay, some hold more than others. Some hold fish on the outgoing tide more than the incoming tide. You're going to have to figure this out. And the best way to do it, for me to tell you, is get a little bit of tackle, get a decent rod that's capable of throwing these heavy jigs. You can't throw a trout rod with an 1.5 ounce jig, you'll break it. Okay, so you need a little heavier rod. A 20-40 is what I use. There's 30-pound braid is on this reel. And I'm using 60-pound or 80-pound in fluorocarbon or mono. Basically pull up to a bridge, okay? Have your little pack with your tackle on it. Walk out. Observe what everybody else is doing to start with, okay? If you go to a bridge and there's 20 people on it, and there's 10 people throwing jigs and they're all in like 1/4 of the bridge, they're probably on that 1/4 of the bridge because that's where they catch their fish at. So, you know, kind of learn that, you know, memos in your head. Hey, I know where they're at. I know where they were fishing at. Try to stay out of everybody else's way. It's nothing more that aggravates me is I'm fishing and somebody like comes right on top of me. So give a little distance, give a little bit of room. But what I would suggest to you is you're going to go to the side of the bridge where the current is coming at you. So if the incoming tide is heading south, you're going to be facing the north side of the bridge because you're going to throw up current. And what I suggest you to do, don't worry about real long casts. Don't worry about trying to cast 6 bays down on your first throw because you don't know the structure on the bottom. What I suggest you do, start with shorter casts, let it hit the bottom, reel it in. If it's all sand and you're not bumping rocks, cast a little farther. Learn the structure on the bridge. Once you learn the structure on the bridge, now you have to learn where to stand at to get the correct sweep to go over that structure. Because if there's structure, there's snook. Okay? The other thing that holds snook on a bridge is a shadow line. Now the shadow line on the bridge, basically most bridges have your dark shadow, the shadow line that's the darkest. It's the closest towards where you're standing at. There's always what they call the secondary. The secondary is a shadow line that's out a little farther and it's a little lighter, and there's not that much of a tint change between the outside of the shadow line and the inside of the shadow line. Now, real quick, if you don't mind, could you shine that up there at that light above us, way up high? All right, let's pretend that is a bridge light on the bridge. Okay? All right, now the reason I wanted to do that is, if there's no bridge lights, there's no shadow line. You've got to have light to have a shadow. So, if you take that light and you look down, you'll see where the water has a dark line on it, and it's a little lighter on the outside. Those snook are staged on that shadow line on those bridges, and their nose is into the current. So in order to catch a snook on a jig, you have to cast a jig past them, get it down, and then bring it back towards you. So they're ambush predators. They're in the shadow because the bait fish are coming at them, they can't see. The bait fish, they come in and they come out and they eat them, and they come back and they sit back and they stage back where they were at. Now, the shadow line on the surface, you can see, but you can't see the shadow line on the bottom. So if you're on a bridge that's 40 feet high or 25 feet high, whatever the height is, and your lights are shining on the water, and that water is 15 to 20 feet deep, that shadow line, if you take and draw a line from the center of the light down to the dark on the water, that has to continue on that line until it hits the bottom. So if these snook are on the surface, the shadow line that you see is where they're at. But if the fish are on the bottom, they are forward by 10 or 12, 15 feet. Okay, so they're gonna be on the edge of the light and the dark. So you have to cast farther. Like I had a guy the other day say, hey, I'm hitting snook on the bridge, I'm hitting them in the light, they're not even on the shadow line. I said, well, how far out in the light is it? Oh, about 10 feet. I said, how high is the bridge you're on? That's 25. Well, guess what? The fish he caught was on the shadow line on the bottom. So you have to think about that shadow line on that line coming off the light is farther out on the bottom than it is on the surface. So you would take your jig, cast out, get comfortable where you're at. What I do is, I can't cast here, guys, because there's no fishing. I'm gonna stand on top of the pylon. The pylon on the bridge is right on my feet. And I'm gonna take my jig and I'm gonna throw it out at 45 up current. I'm gonna let it hit the bottom. I'm gonna take it and just slowly retrieve it back and let it sweep through the shadow line all the way back. Now these fish sometimes will be on these pylons that you're standing on also. The reason I'm standing on the pylon, not in the middle of the bay, if he hits me right, I go right. If he hits me left of the pylon, I can move left. Now I'm in a neutral position. If you're standing dead in between the two pylons and you hang one on the other side of the pylons, he gets you around that, you're not getting that fish. There's no way you can. So stand on top of the pylons. And I make, on a bridge I know real well, I probably make 10 casts in each bay. And I'll move over to the next area, and I'll work that whole bridge. Okay, when I find a bite, I stay on it. I won't move, I'll stay right there. If I don't get bites, I keep moving. Once you get to know the bridge, you're gonna fish it enough that you'll find out which tide works best. Obviously, some bridges are gonna be incoming tide only bridge. Some bridges have a catwalk only on one side of the bridge and not on the other. If that's the case, then you have to fish the tide that allows you to for that catwalk. If you're on a bridge and it's open on both sides, you can fish either side of the bridge, incoming or outgoing, doesn't matter. And most of the time, those bridges are going to hold fish on both tides anyway. I like fishing the side of the bridge that has the farthest shadow line. That's just me, because I have more area of darkness for those fish to set in. When you have a bridge where the lights are hanging over the water, there's no shadow line. If you have the lights on that side of the bridge, but if you go to the other side, those lights are farther away, so now you have that trajectory line. You probably have 20 feet of darkness where you're standing at, out into the water, maybe even 50 feet. And don't be afraid to cast 75 feet from the bridge to catch snook. Because we catch fish in the shadow lines of some of the bridges that are 100 foot from the bridge, because the shadow line is so far out. But these fish, they might be inside closer where you're standing at on these pylons. So just because you cast up into the light and let it fall, and you're pulling it through the shadow line, you don't get a hit. Don't reel up. Let it come around and get close to the pylons, because these fish, they like structure. Anything to ambush a prey, that's what they're trying to do. If they're hanging alongside the pylon, waiting on the bait to come in, to them, that's just the way they do it to get their food. They also do the shadow line. Sometimes you get thumped in the middle. If you get a lot of thumps in the middle, usually there's a pocket of fish there. But a lot of times what will happen is, hey, I caught the snook right in the middle of the shadow. I don't know why he's there. Probably turned and followed your jig out of the light into the dark and followed it, and as you were bringing it through the shadow line, he ate it. That's usually what happens. That doesn't mean you couldn't hang one that's hanging there. If there's a lot of rocks in the shadow line or bottom structure, those fish may be in the dark the whole time, but they're around structure. If it's just sand bottom, most of the time those fish are going to be on the shadow line. And I hope that helps you today.